broadcast country has welcomed the basketball nation this weekend, so pull up a chair for the final edition of the College Basketball Report. We'll tell you about the improbable ones, the unranked Villanova Wildcats, who may not look pretty doing it, but they get a chance to do it tonight. And we'll tell you about the nearly unbeatable ones, Georgetown, looking to repeat and cap off a Big East love fest. And yes, they enjoy their work.
We carry on a lot of foolishness, but when the mallet hits the table, we get very serious.
And we're serious about our 1985 ESPN Postseason Awards, the All-American teams, the coaches, the player, and freshman of the year, on our final edition of the College Basketball Report.
Welcome to ESPN's College Basketball Report with Bob Lee and Dick Vitale. Brought to you by National Car Rental. When you rent a car for business or pleasure, you deserve national attention.
Welcome to our final edition of the College Basketball Report, coming to you this week from Claiborne Farm in Paris, Kentucky, along with the coach, Dick Vitale. I'm Bob Lee. Commonwealth of Kentucky, known certainly for great basketball and great horses. Tonight's final game, Georgetown may want to turn this thing into a sprint. Villanova may want to pull the reins on back.
Well, we have John Thompson as one jockey. He's up on Patrick Ewing. We have Rolly Massimino. He's up on Eddie Pinckney. I think when they get out of that starter's gate and they get towards the winner's circle, you're going to see Mr. Ewing standing tall once again and getting a gold trophy like he did.
This tournament began, most observers were saying Georgetown would repeat, and that pretty much is the sentiment, as we're about 90 minutes away from game time at Rupp Arena. The Hoyas, well, you might say they have steamrolled to where they will enter this game tonight. They began with a game that everybody feared like a bad car wreck, but Lehigh played with heart. Not nearly enough talent, but loads of heart. Next, Temple. The second time in 2 years the Owls had the #1 team in the country. Georgetown lived up to their billing. Loyola said they knew no fear, and for most of the game they played like it. That win, though, lifted Georgetown into the Eastern Regional Final, where Georgia Tech had a very good chance. Ewing in foul trouble, Michael Jackson off his game, but Ralph Dalton saved the day and a trip to the Final Four. Saturday, the Hoyas put David Wingate on Chris Mullen and put the game on ice with a typical spurt early in the second half, giving them their third appearance in the championship game in the last 4 years. And it's a fair assessment that tonight Georgetown will be playing for the championship and a spot in the record books.
Right now, we have to concern ourselves with Villanova, and we have a game to play, because if we lose that game, like you said, we won't be compared to those teams. So we have to concern ourselves with winning.
Before the Hoyas look for their place in history, they'll have a third meeting with Villanova.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very mental game Monday night, because Villanova really don't get out and run that much. They try to control the tempo, and we try to control the tempo. And we play great defense. They play great defense. It should be a very mentally, physically tough battle.
What I remember most about the 2 games that we played with Villanova is that they got out to a fast start against us. So therefore, that led us to play their type of ball game, and we couldn't really get our running game to go as well as we would like it to.
If you remember early in the year when they were asking me for the roundup in the Big East, I said I don't bet on the horses, I bet on the jockey. And I think Rolly is a very competitive person. I think he's got kids who are good basketball players. You know, he's got a pretty much a mature team, and with Pinckney, the McLeans, you know, those kids have been in tough ball games.
Georgetown's jockey is a heavyweight in his own right.
He's a coach and also a friend. When we're on the court, there's sort of a different personality. He's trying to get the job done. He's trying to make us perform to our best. And he shows great confidence in us, and that makes you play a little bit better, because then you say, well, even when you're feeling a little down and you don't feel like, hey, I can't do this, he shows great confidence in you, and then right after that, he gets on you about something else. So then, therefore, you got to try that much harder.
Hell, I couldn't play the way they do. So it don't reflect my personality. You know, these kids are far better than I ever was, and I probably couldn't even play for me. I wouldn't like my attitude, to tell you the truth. You know, but that's my individual preference. You know, they like my attitude, or they stay here. I tell them all the time, I'm not certain that I could play for John Thompson, because he hollers all the time. I couldn't stand anybody hollering at me.
Yes, they've got Patrick Ewing in the middle. but they won with Ralph Dalton saving the day in the Big East Championships and also against Georgia Tech. This is a true team where they play 140%.
They really have the great team concept. Michael Jackson has absolutely proven to everyone that he's a legitimate super point guard. You talk about Reggie Williams, Mr. Cool, makes all the clutch plays, runs the break, is so much part of their finesse game. David Wingate shut down Mullen on Saturday, was just tremendous defensively, and he's a slasher. Bill Martin is certainly a premier baseline player, and the bench, you mentioned Dalton and also Horace Broadnax, and John Thompson's doing a masterful job coaching. Bob, one of the great teams to play college basketball in all time.
Dick, you've said one of the greatest. I'd have to think when you look at what the sport has become, the limitation on scholarships, the great proliferation of high school talent, the entire computerization of this game witnessed the growth of our network and our schedule and the growth of the Big East. If Georgetown wins out of a 64-team tournament, 53 last year, they've got to be the greatest team of all time.
Proliferation, computerization, I don't know those words, but my feeling is the greatest team ever to play college basketball during my era. I like that Indiana team of 1976, Scott May, Quinn Buckner, Wilkerson, Benson, and of course the General Bobby Knight. Hey, maybe we can get a computer game together, put that matchup against this Georgetown team and see what would happen. And don't forget maybe the Lou Alcindor years with Mr. Alcindor in the middle, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They can lay claim to maybe the best of all time.
There's no doubt about it. No matter which side of the argument you come down, that is one of the big questions making the rounds this weekend of the Final Four, Georgetown's place in history. Villanova's got a spot in history, one of the most improbable stories in tournament history. Unranked, they're on the final game tonight. We'll take a look at Rollie Massimino and the lads from Philadelphia right after this. How much of a long shot was Villanova? Well, before the tournament began, they were not on anyone's lock list. They had to win a game or two in the Big East tournament to really make an impression on the committee. They are in the final game. They are unranked. It has been a season of improbables in the postseason for Villanova. The obstacles began at the beginning. The Dayton Flyers on the Dayton court, but Villanova moved on where Michigan, #2 in the country, awaited. Well, the Wildcats did their usual control the tempo thing for a major upset. Then against Maryland on ESPN, the Cats held Lenny Bias in check to make the Southeastern Regionals. North Carolina controlled the first half of that game convincingly, but the role switched in the second half. Harold Jensen became a shootist, and Rollie became a Final Four coach. There's a lot of emotion on the surface with this Villanova team.
I think perhaps it's as good as any we've ever had, because I think down the stretch they played better than any team we've ever had.
We are in a championship game, and you dream about these type of things, much less the Final Four. You got one more game before you could possibly have a national title, and that feeling is just a tribute to everyone's hard work that's involved in our program.
Coach is a natural-born winner, and that's one thing that I always want to do is win. But Gary explained it perfectly. I don't think I would replace it for anything in the world.
Strategically, rather than emotionally, Villanova will keep the score in the 60s, but they're not going to hold the ball.
We are not going to play any differently or try to play any differently than we played all year long. We're going to try to control the tempo if we can and make the extra pass if necessary and get the ball inside without, again, attempting to hold the basketball.
Tonight in the title game, a pair of senior setters go at it.
As far as Patrick is concerned, he's the best out there. You know, I haven't played against anyone any better. And, you know, I think I'm more accustomed to his style of basketball since I've played against him for 4 years. So, you know, I don't think I'll be in awe of him at all in the upcoming game.
The Wildcats, a bouncy coach and a very loose team.
Coach has been, to me, I would have to say, a brother, a friend, a father, your boss, your coach, okay? Your coach I would put that in the last category because that's an obvious thing that you're there for, okay? There are so many other aspects which are involved in being an athlete, a student athlete.
I think everybody's basketball team is a reflection of the coach's personality, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent.
Dick, I call you the shop steward of the coaches union, but even a casual fan of this entire 84-85 season has got to admire what Rolly Massimino has brought to this Villanova Wildcat team and how they manifest that on the hardwood.
Well, you know, Rolly Massimino, to me, Bob, has been the star of stars throughout the tournament. He's done such an excellent plan in terms of designing a game plan for each one of his opponents. And he's a master, as was said time and time again, without the shot clock. And to me, he's just been an unbelievable success story. But you talk about this basketball team, they really have been getting great bench play now from the kid Plansky and also Harold Jensen. I call him a poor man's version of Paul Westphal. He's starting to play with the confidence that they thought he should have initially.
Well, the Wildcats have been winning in this tournament, as you have said, by reading from the textbook. Is there a chapter that's going to work for the game tonight?
Bob, I really don't believe they can handle the kind of pressure defensively that Georgetown will utilize. The full court traps, the man-to-man pressure, the half-court traps. I think that Georgetown has enough ammunition to utilize their pressure to speed up the tempo of the game and take away the ball control tactics of Villanova.
Well, some interesting matchups on the court tonight, just as there were back in 1979 when Bird took on the Magic Man. We'll take a look at that moment and also come back and set the matchups for tonight's championship game. We've talked about the personalities and some of the sidebar stories on the sideline of this Final Four in Kentucky. But now let's get down X's and O's, the matchups, and where the strengths and the advantages will lie for tonight's game. We begin outside at the point, at point guard, Gary McLean and Michael Jackson. Jackson, a better guard than his numbers would show, and McLean with that little jump shot, the shot put shot.
Well, McLean's an outstanding free throw shooter, and he's been a stable player in the backcourt for Rolly Massimino. But I got to give the edge to Michael Jackson. When you talk about the premier point guard in the nation, I start out my #1 choice, Mark Price at Georgia Tech. #2, Steve Mitchell, UAB. Then we have the Pearl, Washington. And then you got to start talking on the next tier about Jackson. I give the plus side right there, Michael Jackson.
Now at big guard, David Wingate made big headlines for himself on Saturday, shutting down Chris Mullin, holding him to 8 points. Dwight Wilbur for Villanova, but also Harold Jensen with the outside shot.
Well, you look at Villanova's backcourt, the big guard slot, Jensen, and you talk about Wilbur, give him an excellent stationary jump shooter at that position, but they do not have the floor quickness and the kind of tournament exposure that Wingate has. And you know, Wingate did a great job on Mr. Mullin, but let's not make Wingate into a Superman defensively. He had a little bit of help from his friends in that box-and-1 defense, but edge, David Wingate.
One of those friends you were talking about, 7 feet 1 inch of excellence. Patrick Ewing matched up against Eddie Pinckney. Pinckney is a great player, but Ewing is one of the greatest ever.
Well, Ewing is certainly in another world. He's Mr. Universe, so that's an M&M or a mismatch. That again is one of those famous ones, Joan Rivers and Christy Brinkley. And you know what I think of Miss Brinkley. So again, right now, I got to give that plus side without a doubt. You don't have to be a genius, Mr. Ewing.
Big forward Billy Martin against Harold Presley, who really didn't have a good shooting day on Saturday.
Well, I got to go with Bill Martin. Martin's been such an improved player on a baseline. He's really an unknown commodity. Harold Presley, solid defensive player, good passer, little limited offensively.
Small forward Reggie Williams, who really is making a national name. It began really in Seattle, a championship game this year, matched up against Wayne McLean, the D-Train.
He's really an outstanding game player at tournament time. Reggie Williams, Mr. Cool, can shoot it. D-Train's done a great job. Close right there, but again, plus side, Reggie Williams.
Quickly, who has the edge in coaching?
I got to give the edge on a bench right now. Don't get mad, Rolly Massimino, but I love you. You're a great, great coach. But it's got to go to John Thompson because he's been there. He knows what it's all about, coaching at this pressure time.
And a prediction, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say Hoyerville, right?
It's a lock. It's like we got the Secretariat here, spectacular bid at the farm. They got Patrick Ewing. He's in their class. It's got to be W time for Georgetown.
Well, I tell you, though, so much of this tournament is about fairy tales and just getting a chance. Lehigh had a chance. That's
I know you're going to go with the...
FDU had a chance. You got to believe in fairy tales. I think Villanova has the stuff of making
another miraculous season. He just wants to be different.
Well, speaking of being different, let's take a look now at the 1985 ESPN All-American Awards. Well, our All-American team for 1985, we start in the backcourt with the fellow, the big guard from St. John's, Chris Mullin.
Motion without the basketball reminds me so much of John Havlicek and also Bill Bradley, and it's got the great velvet touch.
He's got the touch. Mark Price can run the offense out of Georgia Tech.
He distributes the basketball, has great range as a shooter, also a great free throw shooter down the clutch.
Everybody who voted agreed that Pat Ewing had to be our center once again.
Shot changer, shot blocker, just absolutely a winning machine.
Then there's Wayman Tisdale. The question for the Oklahoma Stars, does he come back and be a senior.
Scoring machine, really dynamite down inside, has an assortment of shots and a great left-handed jump shot.
And Keith Lee, who finally got to the Final Four.
Finesse player as well as a power player, goes inside, outside, a multi-dimensional athlete.
So a look at our first team All-American selection, the 1985 ESPN All-American team. Mullen and Ewing, unanimous, and both repeat performers on that team. Now, the second team, we begin in the backcourt with junior Johnny Dawkins.
Johnny Dawkins, an explosive scorer, excellent defensive player, and an excellent transitional player.
Steve Mitchell on the point out of Alabama Birmingham.
Combo guard, probably was the best guard in America until the end when Price nipped him out.
Creighton's Benoit Benjamin made a lot of noise down the stretch and really moved up well.
Score, rebound, learning from a master in Willis Reed. Looks like he will be America's premier player next year.
Wichita State's Xavier McDaniel, he had the double, the rebounding and the scoring title.
A scoring, rebounding machine, just a kid that loves to play the game, a Skywalker.
And Kentucky's Kenny Skywalker himself, a junior.
You talk about a guy that rises, great inside power moves, quick off the floor, just a dynamite player.
Our second team All-American selection, 4 juniors and a senior. Freshman of the year, there was some spirited balloting, but Danny Manning of Kansas came away with the honor.
Danny Manning, an absolute finesse player, can handle the basketball, can play any position on a floor. He's got an unbelievable future.
Coach of the year, again, it was interesting in the balloting, but Michigan's Bill Frieder, maybe he wanted to go farther in the tournament, but he did a great job in the regular season.
Well, Michigan was the Rip Van Winkle basketball team. Frieder did a great job getting them to perform all year long, other than the slip against Villanova.
And Patrick Ewing, player of the year, ESPN's 1985 player of the year, and the thing that impresses me so often, he never stops working 110%.
Bob, he's Mr. Intensity on the floor, plays with a lot of emotion, a lot of feeling. He knows how to win. He's the closest thing to Bill Russell when Bill Russell was a winning machine for San Francisco. Patrick Ewing will be a dynamite NBA performer.
And Dick, our player of the year could be the centerpiece tonight at Rupp Arena as the Hoyas try to do something nobody's done since 1973. Repeat as the national champions. We'll have a final word here at Claiborne Farm, this final edition of the College Basketball Report, when we return. As we close out yet another season on the College Basketball Report, the shot clock has been a topic of conversation, but I think that's a dead issue because I think we're going to have it next year and it belongs in the tournament.
Bob, it definitely belongs in basketball. I'd like to see the shot clock, but also the three-point play, top of the circle so that the defenses do not pack it in and we see a zone-oriented basketball game. I think the two of them go really hand in hand. I'd like to see also that a coach cannot call a timeout after a score, that he needs possession of the basketball a la the NBA rule.
One thing for next year, I haven't changed your mind, and you haven't changed
my
mind.
We're going to battle on this?
We might battle on this. What 64 teams get in? I like to think there's a little bit of a fairy tale possible to happen in this tournament about the 29 at-large bids. I tell you, Coach, next year there could be another Lehigh, another FDU, and another couple of big upsets in this tournament.
Bob, I think the committee, Dave Gavitt, when he headed it, and Vic Bubas, they do a great job. The problem is the automatic berths. I think you got to eliminate the automatic berths and have a conference really prove and earn the right to get a tournament bid to play at this level. Let them define what really the criteria should be to get a tournament berth, because to me, some of those teams just do not belong.
Well, Coach, thanks for a great season. Thanks also to our hosts here at Claiborne Farm, the Hancock family, and manager John Sosby. For the coach, Dick Vitale, I'm Bob Lee. Good season, and it's with the teams here as they play on Saturday, getting ready for the championship game. They just want to extend their season just one more night.
Give me just one more night. Give me just one more night. One more night. 'Cause I can't wait forever. Give me just one more night. Give me just one more night. One more night. 'Cause I can't wait
The College Basketball Report has been brought to you by National Car Rental. When you rent a car for business or pleasure, you deserve national attention.